Are you still up?
Hi. You know, I stopped watching the weather. Thank you.
The smile was saturated.
You want me to walk to those lights? No. For you? And that goes on?
Oh, but.
Pressure off. I already said it but I rewrote a script either
I just got a text from Megan. I think she's going to be late.
Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
12th, this meeting of February the 9th, 2015, was included in the list of notices sent to the Central Record, Burlington County Times, and Courier Post, posted on the bulletin board in Town Hall, and has remained continuously posted as required notices under statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Roll call. Mr. Barton.
Present.
Mr. Franson.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Yates.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here. At this time, I'll open the floor up for public comment on agenda items only, and it excludes the first reading of ordinances, and discussion will be held in public.
John Clifford, 21 Woodside Drive. I have a question on your waiting closed session. Clarification, is that one item that you're going in there for, or is that three different things you're going to be discussing?
There's three different matters.
Shared services is the reason to go into closed session? Hazardous buildings are a reason to go into closed session?
Well, sure. The purpose for going in on shared service would be to discuss negotiations that might be going and might lead to a contract for the shared service. So it would be negotiate the contract. The unsafe structure is to discuss potential litigation with those ongoing unsafe structures and what's going on with those and whether or not to sue or so forth and so on. And the last item is a tax appeal. It's before the tax court in Trenton, which is Crown Castle, which has appealed their tax assessment.
Okay, thank you. The way it's punctuated in the thing was not clear.
We'll make
There's
sure
like one long sentence.
we'll make sure that we put it on the record at the time and make sure it's clear.
On your list of bills, $17,500 to the Tabernacle Rescue Squad. Why are we giving money to someone we don't have a contract with? We don't have a contract with them, why are we giving them money?
We do have a contract with them. We have an ongoing contract, we have an ongoing ordinance for them, and we have a line item in our budget, and it's 1/4 of that, we pay them 4 times a year.
And if I recall, only for the last year, it was discussed that maybe you weren't going to give them that money because they were charging for their services. And it was going to be evaluated at the start of the new year. This is the new year.
They'll be discussed as part of the budget discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kathy Berger, 18 Woodside Drive. From the regular agenda, Resolution 2015-27 for the firefighter certification program. I was hoping when it comes time for that, you could give a little description of what that is and how the program is going to work. Resolution 2015-35, I wanted to know if you've advertised yet for this open position. 2015-37, I saw the dollar amount that you were sending for petty cash. It just seemed like an odd amount to me. Usually petty cashes are a rounded amount, so it just seemed odd with the 35 cents. So I was just asking for clarification on that. And Resolution 2015-41 for the appropriation transfers, a rec O&E line item. I was just curious about that because we don't have a rec department per se, so I was just wondering if you could give a little background of like what that line item appropriation covers. Now I have several for the bill list, so. B&C fabrication and truck repair, truck 11. Curious as to what department that truck belongs to. Broco JIF 2015 first installment, just wanted to know if that covered the addition of the fire building, vehicles, equipment, and personnel and such in the insurance line item. Deer Park spring water, I'm curious as to what locations get water delivery and if there's a reason for it, if we have a problem with any of our water, and that's why we do it. Haggerty's repair shop, truck number 7, just wanted to know what department that is. MN8 Foxfire, wondering what the helmet band is, just curiosity there. Mobile Mini, wondering what equipment we rent from that vendor. NW Financial Group was wondering what services, advisory services were provided. Parker McKay, I also would like to know what subject matter that advice was on. Recycle rewards. I was wondering if we know how many residents actually partake in that program. If it's really worth it for us. So I know I personally have never done it. I recycle every week like I'm supposed to. This past week I had 3 different 90-gallon cans out, but I've never put in for recycle rewards. Standard Insurance Company, I just wanted to know what this covers and when it applies. Fuel usage for December from the Tabernacle Board of Ed, I was curious if fire is included in that now. And U.S. Municipal Supply, same thing, I'm looking to see what truck 11 the department belongs to. Virtual at work, looking to see what firefighters were tested under the fit testing. That's everything for January 23rd. And February 6th, thank you. February 6th.
No, I'm not. I'm not taking
I
this.
think we're gonna have to unmove, but go ahead.
That's fine.
Well, no, because she said saying it so quick, that's why I was asking.
I'm trying to get in my 3 minutes, because I didn't know if you'd give a little latitude because of the canceled meeting,
Because of
which,
the questions, I'm allowing you to.
thank you.
But I think you need to go a little slower.
Okay.
Because you're.
And thank you for canceling that meeting, I think it was safe for everybody, so thank you. Nat Alexander Company, just wanted to know what this equipment is. I didn't know if it had to do with the changeover of the 2 companies, or if it's just something that was already planned on. The Equine Emergency Extrication Training, in fact, I think I saw something online about that, so I'm actually know the answer. I believe that was CERT, but and EMS, but just wanted to see who actually received the training. And then QC Laboratories, we're doing some testing at the firehouse. I just wanted to know, what are we testing for, and is there an issue? And, let's see, Tabernacle Fire Company number 1, making a payment. Their agreement does not have a monetary value in it. So I'm wondering how we're issuing a payment and how we determine that dollar figure. And I think that's all my questions.
You tell me when you want me to answer them, because we're gonna have to go over them again.
All right, well, if you want to make a notation next to those, please, so you can actually answer the question. But you know what, just as far as the bills, answer those, please.
Truck 7 and 11 belong to the Public Works Department.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure. Broco Jeff, that was my next one.
Tabernacle JIF does not include the fire company at this time. That's being added in the second installment.
Okay, do we have any idea what amount that will be, or, I know they sent the bill out, but I don't know if they have to make an adjustment then.
They have not given me that adjustment.
Okay. And let's see, I had the Deer Park,
Your park order is for all the buildings in the city.
when you say throughout the township, you mean your township buildings?
Township buildings at 163 for Rancho.
Thank you. Is there any problems, or,
Quality water is not
okay,
where we like to be, and it's cheaper than treating at this point in time.
okay, and then MN8 Foxfire. Just curious what that helmet band
That
is.
was a van that was purchased by the district and not yet paid for.
Okay, so just a follow-up bill. And then Mobile Mini Incorporated, what are we renting?
Mobile Mini is the storage for the construction.
Okay. And NW Financial Group.
W Financial Group is that audit that they did to see if any of our previous bans needed to. The IRS came up with that.
The continuing disclosure, that's what I thought it was, I just wanted to check on that. And was Parker McKay, same thing?
Yes.
That's what I thought, thank you. Recycle rewards, I know I hit you cold with that one, so I'm okay if you have to get back.
Recycle rewards, I would have to do the amount and figure out the cost for that, how many households.
And I'm fine with that, I didn't know if they gave a report on it that just says, you know, X amount of residents take advantage.
Actually, about 48% of the residents use the service.
Pretty good. Great, and standard, oh, I'm sorry,
That's why we continued with that.
okay. And Standard Insurance Company?
The insurance company is long-term disability.
No, it says short-term on this one.
Short-term. What was the question?
Basically, what does it cover and when does it apply? So, I mean, like, this,
Full-time employees, we cover it for a certain number of days, up until 6 months.
Okay, so we don't really have like cumulative sick leave then, I guess. This kicks in.
We have cumulative sick leave.
Right, if you do cumulative sick leave, then you're paying the person, right, while they're out?
If they have enough if they have enough sick time
Mm-hmm,
for the time they're out, they
Right.
can use their sick time first.
okay,
And then the disability is available to them if they don't have it.
okay, so only if they don't have it, they would apply, okay. And then the fuel usage for December, does that include the fire? Okay. And then make the truck 11, virtual work, I was just wondering what firefighters.
I'd have to go back and look to see which
Okay.
ones were.
All right, if you can shoot me an email on that, or even if we report at the next meeting. And then Nat Alexander Company.
That is a continuation of the bill that was, I think, approved by the district, but I'd have to go back and look at that.
Okay.
Which,
The equipment fire and fire police, when I looked at it further, I thought maybe that could be turned out here by the price.
was approved at the district in September.
Okay,
They got partial delivery, they paid partial of it.
This is the
Balance up-
continuing
This
of
is
it.
the balance of the
Okay.
equipment that came.
all right. And then the Point Emergency Extrication Training,
That was done with CERT, rescue squad, I don't know whether any fire
Okay.
members.
and then QC Laboratories, the testing of the firehouse.
Is it at the firehouse or is it at the?
It says testing firehouse, so I didn't know, that's why I was asking.
I would have to go back and look at that.
Okay, have we tested at the old firehouse before?
Apparently we have.
Okay, so it could be that one.
I believe it's probably the ongoing for the use of the kitchen. I'm assuming it's the same thing we have to do at the community center.
Okay.
We have to quarterly test because it's used as a commercial kitchen.
And is that the EMS or is that the firehouse on Vulcan?
We have to do both.
Okay,
It's not the one at New Road, it's the one at the community center and the fire.
right, community center, okay. And then,
It looks to be the same dollar amount, so that's what I'm going to assume it is.
okay, and if you want, just follow up when you answer the other one for me in email. And then Tabernacle Fire Company 1, I'm just curious how we're, coming to that.
Because we came with the same agreement that the Metropolitan Fire Company had, and that had a dollar amount of over $24,000.
It did, but it's not in your agreement.
$24,900.
Yeah, but it's not in your agreement. Your agreement doesn't mention money whatsoever in your agreement.
I'd have to go back and look. That's what I was basing
I have it with you if somebody wants to take a peek at it, but I think you should reconsider that bill. Thank you.
Any other public comment on agenda items only?
Shall I wait until we're available? I have bill list questions as well. And probably all Mr. Kramer, since he's been involved in all the others.
Take a look at this.
Okay. There's a bill to Continental Fire and Safety Inc. for $117 for fire research. What is that that's being researched, and why is that research being done?
On the February 6th,
It's on February 6th, that's right, first page.
Fire research, as I said, is not research, it is a ladder cover. It's what it's listed in the catalog as.
It's a piece of equipment, a
It's
ladder cover.
It's a ladder cover to go over at the end of the ladder for 44 life.
Okay, thank you. Also, on the bill list of January 23, there's another entry for Continental Fire and Safety. This one's called Equipment for Tabernacle Fire Company number 1, 8822.
Unfortunately, I do not have that bill in front of me. I will make a notation to get back to you.
Okay, thank you. also on the agenda item. I also have questions on the firefighter cert program. And if you're going to be describing what that is, that would be helpful. I'd like to know what the certification is for, what are the responsibilities of the chief, what does it mean that he's the city
If you give us
employee?
those questions, Mr. Kramer can answer that in his report.
Well, what's the, is the chief a de facto department head? What documents is he going to be submitting to the township? Are there purchase orders involved in that program, and will he be submitting those to the township? Who is going to keep and maintain all the documents associated with that program? Will the township receive those documents?
If you want to answer it right now, we're not going to get into long questions.
The simple answer is continuation of the same program that's ongoing with the fire district, because the fire district doesn't exist, they needed the government agency to sign off on the same thing. It's the same program they use for fire. Nothing new.
Who is keeping the records? Who will be keeping the records?
I'm assuming the fire company will at this point in time. They have been in the past, or the district has been in the past, so the fire company is keeping the training records.
Are there other records besides training records?
that I'm reading.
Will the township receive any record?
At this point in time, I see the need to.
Regarding 2015-28, the refund of the cost of CDs, I know that was a recalculated amount from the prior limits. Are you guys comfortable that it's been, that all the calculations have been done as they should be, and this is the right number?
Yes.
Thank you, Liz.
Any other public comment on agenda items?
I hope this Melbourne, now 11:30 on the Indian Mills Road. Hope this qualifies as an agenda item. In the reports, there's going to be discussion about litigation Brooks versus Tabernacle Township. Can I make some comments now on that? Because your other public comment is before you do that discussion. It's on the agenda.
Yeah.
I spoke with Mr. Brook, who is, and Mr. Brick, the person whose property is questioned. I spoke with a number of people in the farming community, and we're quite upset by this lawsuit. What it involves is, for farmland assessment, you have to fill out a farmland assessment form. And at the request of the assessor, who, when questioned whether you make the threshold or not, he asks for documentation that you have sold enough to qualify for farmland assessment. In this case, Mr. Brick was asked for that, and he gave his IRS Form F, which most farmers fill out for their things. Mrs. Brooks, I guess for under the open Oprah, asked for those documents, and the financial information was redacted, which it should be. The financial information is private and privileged for the assessor to make sure that it's done. You also have another program in the township for senior citizens, whereas if they meet a certain income threshold, they can get a reduction, I believe it's $250 in their taxes. They also give their financial information. I checked with the township, that information is not given out. If you apply for welfare in the county, you have to prove your income does not meet a certain threshold. That is also private and not given out. This could set a very serious precedent in the state if you don't defend this lawsuit vigorously. our financial, as your financial information is private. You go to the IRS and try to get your financial information, you're not going to get it unless you have a court order. We in the farming community think this is very serious. I think it's interesting that now Mr. Brick, with his property, he inherited it. It's been in litigation with his family for about the last 10 years. And it's only within the last year that he has got sole ownership of this property. When I believe it was his grandfather passed away, the Brooks sent a letter to the family wishing a desire to buy this property, which they said they weren't going to do at this time. Mr. Brick said in the last couple of years, Mr. Brooks has approached him that they seriously want to buy the property. He said, I'm not interested in buying it. Now I find it interesting that now they're trying to get this information after they refused to be able to buy this property. I just really feel that you have to defend this lawsuit with everything. I talked to Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau is very interested in this, following this, and that's all I can say.
Is there any other comment about agenda items?
North Meadow Road. Regarding the executive session and the unsafe structures within the boundaries of Tabernacle Township, would you review again why that is being considered under OPMA?
There's ongoing litigation with respect to several of those properties, and so we want to discuss that litigation as well as the current status of some of the other properties and the merit of conducting litigation aimed at correcting the circumstances.
What are those cases?
The individual property owners?
Well, the name, it would be somebody v. Tabernacle Township, so what are those, what's that ongoing litigation?
Well, the ongoing litigation is involving the Myers litigation, which is put to bed, but there are some issues to discuss there. The names are escaping me, but the lady out there is Lee?
No, on Lee Drive.
On Lee Drive, yeah. There's a property on Lee Drive that we have to discuss. It has not, there's been no action taken. That's been subject to the court order, the property on Lee Drive. There's still the property that's out there on Wimbledon that I wanted to discuss that status. So it's really following up on the status.
Is that one in, is the Wimbledon Way, I guess it's Wimbledon Way?
Yeah,
Is that
litigation, yeah.
And what is the name on that case?
Tabernacle versus Kirsch, I believe it is.
Okay. Thank you. A question that I have on the resolution regarding temporary employment for Ms. Sullivan. When do you expect, first of all, have you noticed, we put a notice in the newspaper for a full-time position? Have you initiated activity on that?
I will ask for that motion.
I'm sorry?
I will ask for that motion tonight.
Oh, okay, okay. How long do you expect that it'll take, based on past experience, to get that
30 to
position?
60 days.
30 to 60 days, okay. Very good. And regarding this issue about the calculation of fees, you feel pretty confident that all of the other fees that are within the provision represent actual costs?
I think to the best of their knowledge, that's how we'd be trying to change them now, of course.
Okay, are you going to undertake any review this year of those fees? You've reviewed the CD fee. but are you going to entertain reviewing all of the other fees that are within that provision? The general provision, fee provision.
The general fee schedule?
Yeah,
We've looked at a few other ones in there right now and have adjusted some of them along with this in the proposal.
oh, okay. Well, thank you.
Is there any other public comment about agenda items only? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. And I'm going to ask one of the district to please come forward. Unfortunately, Tabernacle's not here yet, but I have a proclamation. Unfortunately, we canceled our meeting in January, and this is a little late, but January was School Board Appreciation Month.
Steve, how you doing?
And it also was 100th anniversary of School Boards of New Jersey.
Yes.
So, whereas New Jersey Public Schools serve approximately 1.4 million children from pre-kindergarten through 12th grade, and whereas the direction of public education in New Jersey is charted locally by individual school boards whose 4,800 members serve as advocates for public education as they work with administrators, teachers, parents, and local residents. And whereas boards of education provide accountability to the public, they communicate the needs of the school district to the community, and they convey school administrators the public's expectations for the school district. And whereas school board members receive no remuneration for their services, and whereas the Township Committee is justly proud of the academic, athletic, and social achievements of the students in our community, whereas the New Jersey School Boards Association has declared January 2015 to be the School Board Recognition Month, a time that all residents might acknowledge the contributions made by our local school board members. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township Committee does hereby commend the services of the Lenape Regional High School District Board of Education and its members to our community and its children, and be it further resolved that I, Kimberly A. Brown, Mayor of Tabernacle Township, members of the Township Committee, proclaims January 2015 as School Board Recognition Month in Tabernacle Township, and urges all citizens to join in recognizing the dedication of local school board members, past and present, as we work together to improve educational opportunities for our children.
Thank you.
Skip Van Day, he's been on the board for almost 25 years.
Right.
Led serving Lenape Regional High School District. And to my left is the president of the Board of Education, Mr. Dave Stowe. And you know, we have 11 board members, and they volunteer their time to make sure we're one of the best school districts in this state, and I truly believe that. And we really enjoy our partnership with Tabernacle Township, and we look forward to many, many years of a great relationship. Thank you very much.
And we actually have two past school board members sitting up.
We do.
We do. So the gentleman like to stand up?
All right.
That sent us to send to Lenape. You're the only township that recognized us, and so we thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you so much for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On this very cold evening.
How you doing?
All right, at this time, we're going to have a presentation by the Energy Aggregation.
How you doing?
Okay, so we need lights down.
No, I think we should be okay.
Okay.
So my name is Nick Reynolds. I'm with Commercial Utility Consultants. And I'm here tonight to talk about government energy aggregation and the Burlington County cooperative that we're doing with other towns in Burlington County for residential and commercial and municipal aggregation. So a quick introduction on who Commercial Utility Consultants is. I'll keep it quick. We were founded in 1975, and we worked strictly with commercial, industrial, and governmental accounts, helping them save money on their utility bills, whether through a utility rate analysis or through procurement of energy, whether it be electric or gas. We were appointed by the Burlington County Bridge Commission as the energy agent to run the government energy aggregation program for Burlington County. We are licensed by the Board of Public Utilities as a private aggregator, as an energy agent, and as an energy consultant. And we are a local New Jersey team committed to the success of this program and helping basically the residents save money on their energy. Here's a little snapshot of some of the clients and towns that have moved forward with energy aggregation for their residents. And down here on the bottom, there's actually a few counties, Union County, Morris County, Burlington County, as you know here, and also Passaic County. So towns within the counties have joined together to go out to buy energy at a cheaper rate. So what is energy deregulation? Okay, it's the separation of supply and generation. Okay, so right now in Atlantic City Electric, you have Atlantic City Electric has basically the delivery company. So they deliver all the energy to your house or to your buildings. Before 1999, all right, ACE would basically produce their own energy and then sell you that energy. Now, since deregulation happened in 1999, they have to go out to third-party suppliers, buy the energy portion, and then rebill you for that energy. So they still bill you for the distribution, but now they're going to a third-party supplier to buy the energy for your needs. How does that work? So the Board of Public Utilities runs a statewide auction, and that makes up the basic generation services portion of your bill, or the energy supply. So I'll show you in Atlantic City Electric, for example. Here's the list of suppliers that makes up the supply portion of your Atlantic City Electric bill. So Exelon, NextEra, PSE&G, and TransCanada, those are the generation companies that make up the supply for Atlantic City Electric. So what is government energy aggregation? Well, the Government Energy Aggregation Act was passed in 2003, allowing municipalities to aggregate their load as basically a cooperative or a team to go out and buy power as a cheaper unit than going out as themselves. Well, in 2012, NJAC Title 14 was passed, allowing municipalities to do the same for their residents. And it basically wrote a roadmap for how a municipality to do that, or a county to do that, to extend the savings by joining all the residents together and getting a cheaper rate than what they can currently get now. Throughout this entire process, the Board of Public Utilities and also the Rate Council, formerly known as the Ratepayer Advocate, has full oversight on this program. And what would happen is we would take Burlington County out as a separate entity to go and compete against the rate that you're currently paying Atlantic City Electric now for that rate for supply. The DCA, which is the Department of Community Affairs, they have complete oversight of the auction process. So after we run the auction, and an auction is successful, we will perform an outreach to the residents. So if a supplier is awarded, there's an initial opt-out period, which extends for 30 days. If you do not opt out of the program, then you will be automatically enrolled into the program. The program only would include residents who are not currently with a third-party supplier. So if you did not choose a third-party supplier, you would automatically be in this program. If you did wish to opt out, there are a few ways that you can do that, which would be a mail return, 800 number, or by going to a website. And any resident after the 30-day opt-out period can opt out at any time for any reason with no penalty whatsoever. And if you did opt out, you can always rejoin the program as well at the same price. What happens after the initial opt-out period? So after the initial opt-out period, Atlantic City Electric would send a letter saying that you're going to be switched on this date to this supplier. The letter will come directly from Atlantic City Electric, and it confirms that the switch over to the winning supplier. So what would change on your bill? All right, so this is a sample Atlantic City Electric bill. So if the council would pass this ordinance to join the Burlington County Co-op, the residents would still receive a bill from Atlantic City Electric. And the only thing that would change on your bill would be this one arrow that says basic generation services here. That would be removed and replaced with whoever the winning supplier is. All right? And it's written in this that you cannot move forward unless the price is lower than what Atlantic City Electric is offering. Okay? But the only thing that would change would be this one line item on your bill. It will be replaced with whoever the winning supplier is. The residents would still pay Atlantic City Electric. Now, instead of Atlantic City Electric paying the people that they supply now, they would be paying this winning supplier. That's the only difference. So there is a timeline that the cooperative is following, and here's what the timeline is. So we would hope to have the both readings of the ordinance completed by 3/13/2015. Then have all the documents, which would be the cooperative pricing agreement, the Atlantic City Electric agreement, and also the government energy aggregation agreement completed. We would then send the bid package, which would be the RFP and the supplier service agreement, to the Board of Public Utility and the ratepayer advocate to review and make comments on. In April, we would send the bid documents to suppliers, and then we would have the auction set up for April 22nd. At this time, we would ask that the council would be available to sign an agreement that would say that the savings had to at least be at least 5% compared to what the current rate is. That would be the trigger to move forward with the new agreement. At that point, a 30-day opt-out letter will be sent to all residents, and the education will begin on how this program works, what it means, how much money you're going to save. At the end of that 30-day opt-out period, we would then start enrolling the residents come July 6th. So that's basically what the timeline looks like for this cooperative and the other towns that have already joined it. So some frequently asked questions that we get. Who would you call if your electric goes out? Okay, you would still call Atlantic City Electric or your local distribution company. They still maintain the distribution lines going into your house and will always maintain those lines. You're always going to be an Atlantic City Electric customer throughout the entire program. Will you be penalized if you do not become part of this program? No. This is complete choice. If you do not want to be part of the program, you can opt out for no penalty, any reason you want. Will there be two or different bills? No. You'll still get one single bill from Atlantic City Electric and still pay that bill, and Atlantic City Electric will take care of the accounting on their end. Does this hurt Atlantic City Electric? No. Again, all they are is a distribution company. Still, at this day right now, they have to go out and buy the power from another third-party supplier to provide that power to your homes. Who would you call if you had billing questions? You would still call Atlantic City Electric, or you can call our company, Commercial Utility Consultants, or you can call the winning supplier. So now you have two other companies that you can call if you had a billing question. If you opted out, could you opt back in? Yes. All right, so if for any reason you wanted to opt out of the program and the program was going on for 2 years and 18 months down the road you wanted to come back into the program, you can opt back into the original price that was awarded at the auction for any reason. So all we're doing is replacing this default rate that you're currently on, but making it lower. Is budget billing offered? Yes, so if you're currently with Atlantic City Electric and enjoying budget billing, it maintains throughout the program as well. What if I already have a third-party supplier? So if you already have a third-party supplier, you're currently under an agreement with them. So at this time, you are not included in the program. At the time your contract expires, you would then be allowed to join the program at the same price that the other residents received at the time of the auction. Anytime, for any reason. And why do I have to opt out versus opting in? So this is part of the legislation that is written in the law that makes this program work. So in order for this program, in order for Tabernacle to adopt this, it has to be an opt-out. There is no opt-in form of this program. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have. And here's a snapshot of our contact information.
I had two questions for you. You pretty much answered one of them already, but I just wanted to be sure about this. If you have a third-party supplier right now, you have to wait until your contract is over. that, I mean, you couldn't terminate your contract early if you...
You could, but we like to warn everybody that a lot of times there's fine print on some of those supplier agreements that if you cancel, you're gonna get some type of cancellation, bill. So if we would leave it up to you, that if you do wanna opt into this, make sure that you don't have a cancellation clause in your agreement.
And there's no limit, if somebody waited a year, they could still opt in if the...
Correct, at the same price that happened during the auction.
And the other question I had, you said 5% would trigger this happening. What if the rates of the suppliers went up again to that of Atlantic Electric? If it went up 8% or something, or are you under contract, I guess, for that?
Yes, this would be a fixed amount, and it'll have to stay below the price that would be offered from Lansing Electric.
How long does that contract run?
It can be up to 24 months.
Okay. So then it gets rebid again after
Correct.
that term.
Yeah, and what we would do is we would track the market and suggest to the commission when another good time to go out to market.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank
Just
you.
a follow-up question. You had said it had to be 5% under the current at that time. Will it always remain under the current, or is the current at the time, at that moment in time?
It's at that moment in time because the default rate does fluctuate.
So in theory, Atlantic Electric at some point could be cheaper.
So in this agreement we're having that it has to always be below Lansing Electric. If not, the utility would opt everyone back to Lansing Electric.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
In your example, excuse me, for the Atlantic Electric bill that was up there, the basic generation service was 0.10235 cents a kilowatt hour. 5% of that, on the example that was there for 475 kilowatts, is $2.43 savings a month. What is your percentage for CUC of that 5% to administer the program?
So we would get paid by the winning supplier, and we get paid, it's 1/10 of a penny per kilowatt hour. It's actually less than that, be 1/100th of a penny per kilowatt hour we would get paid.
So you get paid 0.001 cent?
0.003, I believe. So 0.0003 times that 400 kilowatt hours. I'm not sure it would add up to a penny, but.
Any other questions? Stephen, Joe?
You say you need a resolution?
It would be an ordinance to adopt this. And then after the ordinance, you would need a resolution to join the Burlington County Bridge Commission's cooperative for this.
You need that by the 13th?
Yes.
How many days do we need between the elections?
We can't hear you back here.
I'm just worried about the timeline for the public hearing. The public hearing would be on, at best would be on the 9th of March at our workshop meeting. Do we have to introduce tonight, or can we wait until the
10 days.
10 days? I'm okay. 23rd, so we can talk. Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure we had enough time. We never just 10 days.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
appreciate
much.
you coming out.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, see, Tabernacle Board of Ed has arrived. I'd like to ask our Tabernacle Board of Education members and superintendent for board.
I'm Michael Lee. I'm board president of Tabernacle Township School Boards. This is Dr. Megan Jones. Board Member Stephen Price, Heidi Freeman, and Superintendent George Redford.
And we're here tonight because it's January, and I apologize for asking. I
think the weather was conspiring.
Yeah, so January was School Board Recognition Month, and it was also the 100th anniversary of School Boards of New Jersey. So we'd like to recognize you this evening and thank you for all your hard work. Whereas New Jersey Public Schools serve approximately 1.4 million children from pre-kindergarten through 12th grade, and whereas the direction of public education in New Jersey is charted locally by individual school boards whose 4,800 members serve as advocates for public education as they work with administrators, teachers, parents, and local residents. And whereas boards of education provide accountability to the public, they communicate the needs of the school district to the community, and they convey to school administrators the public's expectations for the school district. And whereas school board members receive no remuneration for their services. And whereas the Township Committee is justly proud of the academic, athletic, and social achievements of the students in our community. And whereas the New Jersey School Boards Association has declared January 2015 to be School Board Recognition Month, a time that residents might acknowledge the contributions made by our local school board members. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township Committee does hereby commend the services of the Tabernacle Board of Education and its members to our community and its children, and be it further resolved that I, Kimberly A. Brown, Mayor of Tabernacle Township, and members of the Tabernacle Township Committee, proclaim January 2015 as School Board Recognition Month in Tabernacle Township, and urges all citizens to join in recognizing the dedication of local school board members, past and present, as we work together to improve educational opportunities for our children.
Wonderful. Thank you. This is terrific. Thank you, everybody. We celebrate every month, by the way. And you're welcome to come to our party. It's the meeting over at OMS. We are now celebrating in the all-purpose room, but quite seriously, we take this very seriously. We take our responsibilities very seriously. We represent all the students in the community, and I like that part about no the salaries. There was a few shocked people when they realized we do this for free, but we're very proud to do this for you, but more importantly for our children. So thank you for recognizing us at Tabernacle. Thank you.
You're welcome to leave if you'd like. You don't have to stay. Don't want to.
I don't like when they walk out on our meetings, so I'm not going to say that.
But you're welcome to stay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to pay the bills, please, for January 26, 2015 and February 9, 2015?
Mayor, I'm going to ask that the maker of that motion recognize Ms. Berger raises a good point, that the contract here does not seem to provide for any specific dollar amount. Certainly we can't make payment on a contract that doesn't detail the costs, what they're for, and isn't adopted. So that's a good point that she raises, and I'd ask that the committee subtract that from the bill list so that we can get at the specifics as to what was going on between the fire district and the fire company, what that contract may have been, and revisit this issue in 4 weeks.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Stipulations, Peter?
Stipulations that Peter suggested.
Any questions or comments?
Just want to thank Ms. Berger for pointing that out to us.
Roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to have our public hearing on our ordinances. And when I recognize you, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You will have a 3-minute time limit, and it's 3 minutes on your side. We will stop the clock when someone answers any question you have regarding any of our ordinances. So I'm going to open the second reading on ordinance number 2015-1, An ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. Is there anyone that would like to have public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Can I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Who's that? Joe. Second.
I'll make it.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. We're going to have second reading on ordinance number 2015-2, an ordinance amending the Chapter 17 zoning ordinance of the Code of Tabernacle Township, County of Burlington, and State of New Jersey to identify the area of Medford Farms and Medford Park. Anyone? Public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Can I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Second reading of ordinance number 2015-3, a bond ordinance authorizing the acquisition of a pumper truck for the Township of Tabernacle, County of Burlington, New Jersey, appropriating the sum of $700,000, therefore authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes of the Township of Tabernacle, County of Burlington, New Jersey, in aggregate amount, principal amount of up to $592,000, making certain determinations and covenants and authorizing certain related actions in connection with the foregoing. Public comment? Mr. Cooper?
Jimmy Cooper, 21 Woodside Drive. I'm in favor of buying a fire truck, say that right up front. The township inherited almost $500,000 from the fire district. Was it really necessary to bond for $700,000? It was the intent of the fire district to accumulate a surplus so that they could warrant a down payment on a fire truck. So rather than the township have a windfall of $500,000, why don't you take some of that money that's given to the township when dissolution and apply that toward the fire truck? We're not talking about just a little bit of money, we're talking about $500,000. I don't see the necessity to build, the bond for $700,000 if we have $500,000 sitting there that is intended to be used by the fire department for this purpose.
If you want us to answer the question, we'll be happy to answer that question. Joe, start.
Okay, we took the $108,000 that the fire district had put aside in the budget for the truck payment and used that as the down payment, so we're not bonding for $700,000, we're bonding for $592,000.
Okay. So where's the other $200,000?
The other $200,000 is going into
General fund.
the general fund.
That's what I'm saying, take it out of the general fund and use it for the purpose that the taxpayers intended it to be used for when they voted for the budgets for the fire district.
And we are using the portion that the taxpayers voted for of $108,000.
You're continuing to tax us at the same rate you did when we had a fire district. So you're still having income coming in to provide for those services just like you did in the past. Well, my taxes did not go down when you dissolved the fire district. You incorporated that into the taxes. So you still have the income in, you're generating that income to provide for the expenses of the fire department.
And the provision in their budget was for $108,000 to be used towards the purchase of a fire truck. The rest of that budget was used to operate the fire company.
It was based on the fact that the fire company at the time, when they initiated that budget, was still paying off the large fire truck that they had. That's paid off. You inherited their debt, but their budgets were based on payments to that, which were taken care of this last year.
And that's what we're doing. We're continuing that payment.
There is no payment.
The $108,000 that was put aside by the fire district towards the purchase of the truck is being used as the down payment, as the first payment on the truck. We're doing exactly what they were doing.
aren't you using more of it? I guess what the
I
question
still need
is,
to operate the fire company.
you have an income coming in from a fire tax.
I don't have it yet.
So you have it, you keep getting
And
it.
they work the same way. They work off surplus, and as their money came in, they backfilled the surplus. It's the exact same method that they use. Nothing has changed.
One thing that's changed is the township has inherited a large sum of money that could be used to reduce the amount of bonds, save the taxpayers' money.
And we're
Rather than
using
send it to a pocket,
$108,000 towards that purchase.
Their expenses will not be as high because they don't have a fire truck to pay off. They were still paying on a fire truck last year.
No, they weren't. They were done paying the fire truck.
And they accumulated the money based on a budget that said they were paying for a
Fire truck. And because they didn't, we're using $108,000, which the public had voted on to be used towards the purchase of the truck, towards the purchase of the truck.
Yeah, I understand that.
And that's
But the thing
exactly
is,
what we're
nothing has
doing.
changed except to go to the fire district. There's no debt, you're keeping the money. That money should all be applied to the fire.
You can't. You still have to operate the fire company. You can't take all the money away.
I understand that, but you still have income coming in through taxes. You didn't
I
reduce
don't
your
have it yet.
taxes.
I only have a quarter. I don't have the annual budget.
You don't have all the expenses in the first quarter either.
I have a lot more than the first quarter expenses in that. In the first quarter.
I just, you know, a lot of money for you guys to hide.
Any other public comment?
Stuart Brooks, Moore's Meadow Road. Will this proposed truck have a phone system, a press phone system?
It is my understanding that there will be phone on the truck. It's A and B phone.
That's the same standard phone system that is used in the existing fire truck that has a phone system. I want to be sure we're talking apples and apples here.
You're not talking apples to apples.
Could you explain what you're doing? What phone system
They're
you're
using a system that is proprietary to Rosenbauer, which isn't exactly the same as the proprietary system that the other truck has. So it's not exactly the same. It has the similar effect. In fact, it is more versatile, but it is not exactly the same system.
Okay, thank you. And I understand that there is equipment that will be purchased with the use of these bond monies. What type of equipment is being purchased?
Whatever the supplies are needed to outfit the truck.
Are there going to be any supplies that are to be used that aren't going to be carried on the truck?
The bond calls for the equipment that is to be mounted on the truck.
Is any of the bond money to be used for equipment or gear or anything else that is involved in changing the name from the Bedford Farms Fire Company to Tabernacle One?
What was that, Mr. Brooks, what was your question? I didn't follow it.
I asked if any of the bond monies are going to be used to change the name of the equipment or the building or any other item.
Like the name of the building now, you mean?
Right.
I see.
Or the fire trucks now,
Okay,
or
I understand.
equipment now, or
The new fire truck will have the new name, other than that.
How much will it cost to do the bond work, that is to, from the drafting of the ordinance all the way up to the award of the contract? Roughly, how much is that going to cost?
To do the ordinance was $1,200.
And then actually go from the ordinance to, what's the proper term, issuing a bond, floating bond, public offering, award of contract, to take it to that stage?
Offering and sale.
Yeah, depending on whether we do a bond anticipation note or we do actual long-term financing, I'm not even sure how much that's going to cost.
Can you estimate? I mean, we have issued bonds before for other work. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
there any other public comment on this ordinance?
Frank Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. I'm surprised that Chief Smith isn't here today to come out in support of this ordinance. Having said that, can you elucidate a little bit more on this issue of floating a bond versus long-term financing? In other words, you have not made a decision whether you're going to buy the truck and associated equipment through the state contract program or a program that's offered by one of the many financing companies that do purchase trucks, that loan money to purchase trucks, excuse me. Is that the case, that there's been no decision about how you're going to purchase this truck, what the conduit is going to be?
Most likely we'll be purchasing it through the Houston-Gallatin Area Council and a local service agreement cooperative.
Okay. So will that initiate a monthly payment for the truck? Does that change the bonding arrangements?
No.
No, okay.
We look to take advantage of any of the cost savings we can have by paying on a timely fashion.
Okay, and do you have any sense for what the financing, the interest rate is going through Houston, Galveston?
We'd be purchasing through.
You're purchasing through that, but you're going...
We're not financing.
Oh, you're not financing through them. Okay, I'm glad I asked that, just to clarify that. Because these are nuances that are particular.
They're a purchasing code.
Right. Okay. Who drafted this ordinance? Which attorney drafted this ordinance? Parker McKay drafted the ordinance, okay. And I just I wasn't sure if I heard correctly because I got a cold, that none of the monies in this bond ordinance, other than the painting of the new truck, is going to go to renaming the gear and all of that branding that goes on when the name is changed from Medford Farms to Tabernacle Fire Company #1.
Only the name on the truck itself.
Only the name on the truck itself.
The new truck itself.
The new truck,
Yeah.
yes, okay. Okay, I think that answers my questions. I'm sorry that the chief isn't here to answer more questions. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, ask for a motion to approve.
I have a question. And maybe I can't find it, but is there a breakdown of the additional gear that's going on the truck, or is it somewhere in here?
No, that's not in there.
Okay.
It's basically, right now, the cost of the truck is between $560 and $580, it's estimated.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I was looking for the equipment
And
breakdown.
the cost of the equipment is somewhere around 100 to 120.
Do you have a list of the equipment?
No, I do not.
Okay. Does Dave have a list, or?
I'm sure Dave has a list.
I'll make it.
Is there a second?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
No, and that's because I got an equipment list, and the chief's not here to talk about the truck.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, first reading of ordinance number 2015-4, an ordinance of the Township of Tabernacle amending Appendix A of the revised municipal ordinance entitled Fee Schedule. Public hearing date will be February 23rd, 2015 at 8 p.m. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
Second.
Any questions from the committee? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2015-27, approved firefighter certification program for Tabernacle Fire Company Number 1. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions from the committee? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2015-28, authorize reimbursement costs for computer disks pursuant to the revised municipal fee schedule. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2015-29, authorize cancellation of authorized checks. Outstanding checks,
I'll
excuse
make
me.
the motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2015-30, authorizing change order number 4 for the 2013 local road program. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make it, but then I have a question.
I'll second it.
Okay, questions?
Doug, can you just give us a little background on why we're doing the change?
Okay, this was final tally on the added changes. Most of it was to do the intersection change at Patty Boga Road and New Road, although there was some additional work that was done along the edge and some work near the pipe at, what's called Road 1, if I remember correctly, near Sawmill. And the original, when we turned in the original, there was some discrepancy between the quantities, and they accepted payment under protest. We met, we discussed what the differences were, and came to this agreement on quantities, and the prices were already set in the contract. So it was a quantity issue, and some issues concerning the repair that was made between Fox Chase Road and New Road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I guess it's just a clerical error. The resolution says change order number 3. And we're talking about change order number 4.
We corrected that on the copy you got tonight. Should have been.
It's in the pit. Yes, it got fixed. I lied, I saw that too.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to group the following resolutions together. Resolution 2015-31, 32, 33, 34, and 35, and then 34. Street opening permits for 27 Ann Drive, 5 Stag's Leap, 7 Mallard Drive, and 7 and 10 Nyota Drive. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Things happy with South Jersey Gas?
Basically, right now, South Jersey Gas is not doing anything in Tabernacle. You know, there are plans, they not only plan to do this, but there's still a lot of restoration work they have to finish up once the weather changes.
Any other questions? Roll call?
Thank you. Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2015-35, appointment of temporary part-time office clerk. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make it. Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2015-36, authorizing the placement of temporary signs in the public right-of-way for TAA organization for the fiscal year 2015. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
We doing this just to save time?
I believe so, yes.
They do like 3 times a year or something. 3 or 4.
Yeah.
This doesn't include stuff like Seneca basketball or any of that kind of thing.
No, just strictly TAA. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2015-37, authorizing Tabernacle Township to rescind the petty cash fund from the Tabernacle Board of Fire Commissioners.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Just go ahead.
There were the funds that were turned over to us. I'm sure the justification for where that is will be part of their order.
That was, I was going to ask you to explain that, so you were one ahead of me. Any other questions from the committee? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2015-38, authorized submission of a strategic plan for Tabernacle Municipal Alliance grant for fiscal year 2016. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2015-39, approving application for bingo and raffle license for the Tabernacle PTA. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates? Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2015-40, authorized placement of temporary signs in public right-of-way for the Tabernacle PTA. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved. A second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2015-41, authorizing budget appropriation transfers. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2015-42, authorize cancellation of certain property taxes pursuant to a totally disabled veteran exemption. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motions, a parade permit for the Pine Barrens Enduro Riders Clock Run. The event is 4/11/2015. Have a motion?
I'll make it.
A second.
Any questions or comments?
I see we have the insurance. I didn't see that originally, Ken.
Todd, do you want to explain a little bit?
It's at the southern end of the township. It appears to be coming in from Chatsworth and heading over towards Tabernacle Monument and down in that area, general area in there, and going into Washington Township, south of there.
Any questions from the committee? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Parade permit, South Jersey Enduro Riders, Curly Fern, event, March 22nd, 2015. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Doug, you want to explain this one?
This one comes in from Shimon, same general area, heads south. Looks like it comes in above the camp down there and then goes down past Tabernacle Monument, south of the railroad, and then heads back towards Shimon and Washington Township.
They get a lot of pushback from the Violence Commission about the Auroras.
They get some very specific route areas that they have to run between the Pinelands and the Ranger's office on public ground.
I guess the question I've got is it getting, maybe this isn't a question for, maybe this is a question for the applicants directly, but is it becoming harder and harder to get clearance from the Pinelands Commission to do the Enduros? Can you jump in at any time?
From the Pinelands Commission?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mayor, if I could ask our solicitor to explain that this is not a race where motorcycles just go into Pine and go at full speed from start to finish. Peter, would you describe how this race?
It's a timekeeping event. It's been going on in the Pinelands for more than 75 years. In fact, the activity has its genesis in the Pinelands, starting with the Curly Fern Enduro. But essentially, it's just a challenge whereby there's a certain track that has to be covered within a certain period of time. Most of the time, there's more than sufficient time to cover the area. And so the idea is to time it so that you come in right on time. Some areas are a little bit of a challenge in that there might be a little bit less time available than might otherwise be available, but in general, it's not a race at all by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear that, it's not a race where somebody's gone out in the pines and tearing the pines out. Actually, you actually have pine keepers hidden along the course of
Yeah,
that.
and it travels over the unimproved roadways, the fire cuts, the existing roadways in the Pinelands.
So the winner's based on being at those checkpoints unbeknownst to him at a certain time and keeping a certain speed, not trying to go from 0 to 5 miles down the road as fast as you can.
Nope, that's not how it works.
Thank you.
Does somebody ride through the woods on a motorcycle?
Yeah.
And they're very good about taking care of the trails and whatnot. They'll come through the next day and groom the trails for the most part after they're done. They do a lot of it at the speed one.
Pineland's been hosting multiple events every year for going on 80 years.
Any other questions?
There's a lot of people that are out there that don't like what they do, which is what prompted my original question. Because there is some pushback from the environmental community that the woods are no place for motorcycles, and they've been doing it for 70+ years. They have every right to it as far as I'm concerned. So it's not my editorial. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Okay, at this time, we're going to open the floor to public comment. When I call on you, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Ask your questions that you're going to ask. We will take notes. We will answer those questions as we give our reports. If we cannot answer your question tonight, we will get back to you with that answer. This way, it's going to be an uninterrupted 3 minutes. You'll be able to ask your questions, we'll be able to take notes, and we'll be able to answer them when we do our reports. So with that said, public comment?
Wedding Party, 368 Tuckerton Road. I'm a little disappointed that you moved this section of public comment up. But sometimes when the various professionals give their reports, there might be a question there that's interesting to follow up with. And, you know, by the time the next meeting rolls around, we probably all would forget what that would be. I don't know, I might be off base here, but Resolution 2015-28 authorizing the reimbursement pursuant to the revised municipal fee schedule. Isn't ordinance 2015-4, it's only the first reading to amend that fee schedule, so it might be a little premature. Or am I off base there?
The ordinance is introduced on first reading. Irrespective, they're setting the fee schedule. They're modifying the fee schedule to reflect what they know to be the actual cost, which is always their obligation. So they can go ahead and refund those amounts, even though it's not codified yet in the fee ordinance.
Thank you.
John Cooper, 21 Hillside Drive. I have a question about LoSAP. When you dissolve the fire district, because I read the statutes in the state books, all of the stuff that they had dissolves with them. Meaning that they administered LoSAP, they took care of it, they're the ones that created the LoSAP and fire departments. When you dissolve the district, that goes away. If I'm not mistaken, you need to introduce an ordinance to recreate LoSAP so that our firemen are still protected by it. I just happened to stumble across it. Maybe it's something you ought to concern yourselves with, because, we don't want to lose that to these guys. That's all.
Thank you.
Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. Recently, a resident commented, and I believe it was at the January 2nd meeting, that there was too much criticism and not enough positive reinforcement. But this committee has done some things which are so wrong that it's brought criticism on itself. Positive reinforcement for bad behavior in children or elected officials shouldn't be tolerated. And let me give 3 quick examples of what I mean. Mayor Barton asked the rescue squad to inflate its budget. That's pretty outrageous and demands criticism. The committee assured residents that it would list the ordinance dissolving the fire district on an agenda where they would see it and be advised of the hearing. You then introduced the item on the agenda at the meeting, effectively preventing residents from seeing it and preventing them from making public comment. That too was outrageous and demanded criticism. And much has already been said about the thorough investigation that was of the dissolution of the fire district, which was really shameful and an embarrassment to this committee. And I really think this committee needs to exercise greater accountability and responsibility. My second question is that Colonel Lowe brought up the issue of the LoSAP, expanding LoSAP to the CERT. And Mr. Lang, and I think in that conversation, Mayor Brown said that it would have to go to referendum, and Mr. Lang said, well, you could explore with DCA the potential for expanding it without going to referendum. It was not really clear whether you voted to allow Mr. Lang to explore the matter. So did you approve that request? And I would like to know why Mr. Lang thinks that the township might be able to expand LoSAP without the referendum. My third topic is regarding the $2,660 state supplemental fire grant that you turned over to Tabernacle Fire Company #1. how is that money going to be used? And two, who's monitoring the use of that money? And I'm glad that you pulled back those payments from the bill list because there is no budget. There was no budget included in the contract. And in fact, when that contract was discussed, Mr. Lang made the statement at the meeting that the contract that you were going to adopt was exactly the same as the one that was adopted by the fire district, but that's just not patently true. So I'd like to know when are you only going to entertain the budget regarding the fire company at budget time? How are you going to correct this issue of issuing payments without a budget for the fire company? And one other thing, I didn't hear an explanation.
That was 3 minutes, and I allowed you to finish your question.
Well, but we didn't have a meeting on the 26th, and so
No, I
would think
understand that. It's unfortunate that it wasn't on the 26th, and I'm sure these are probably some of the same questions you would have had at that point.
Well, it's just that we need more time, and some of them I would not have asked at this meeting, so thank you very much.
Stuart Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. Regarding that supplemental fire grant of $2660, does the payment of that money, those monies to the fire company raise the same issues that Ms. Berger raised tonight about the other payments that were on the bill list to go to the fire company? That's one question. Another question regards the contract with the new fire company, which I also remember, Mr. Lang, you said it was going to be the exact same contract, and it's not. It's very different in lots of ways, and my question, it is, check it. It's very different. And my question is, why were those changes made? And the third question I have concerns the reports, the professionals' reports. When this issue was broached some meetings ago, particularly regarding the reports the fire chief would give, and when the committee's response back was essentially he would be here, the chief would be here, anytime you wanted him to be here. Why wasn't he here tonight? What was your thinking on that? And clearly the reason that the question's asked, as Mr. Lee picked up on, was that this is the night when a $700,000 bond for a pumper was voted on second reading. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Yes.
Hi, Jason Lido with South Forestry Court. First of all, with respect to the $3 in bidding back, thank you very much. Because, get extra Starbucks drink. Secondly, there have been a number of Oprah lawsuits over the last number of years against various divisions of Tabernacle, Township, Fire District, other entities as well. And it just occurred to me that under the Oprah laws, the complainants have the right to file a lawsuit in the courts or to go to the GRC. For those who don't know, GRC tends to be a much faster and much less expensive process. So just given the number of Oprah suits, that whether they're responsible suits or not, it seems to me that, short version, I would encourage you guys to consider reaching out to kind of Drunk Road, see if you can get them to support a change in the law that would require Oprah suits to go through the GRC first. At least that way the complainants could perhaps get a litmus test on whether they're likely to win or not. And more importantly, if they actually want these documents, as I said, the GRC tends to be a much faster process. They'll actually get the documents that much sooner. So again, I would just encourage you to look into considering reaching out to them, see if they'd be willing to support this law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Berger, 18 Woodside Drive. I have to say I'm with Mr. McCarty on this, little disappointed that you guys moved the public comment. 90% of my questions when I come up here is usually driven by what is said. So I would gladly hold them until 2 weeks from now, but it would be nice to get them out in one meeting. And with that said, I asked during resolution time, and you were kind enough to give an explanation on change order number 4, which if you had read your emails, I pointed out that to you, just so you know, I sent that to you over the weekend. So I would have liked you to answer on the fire certification program, which not only I, but another resident asked about at the same time during public comment, so we could hear about it and not wait until the committee reports. Mr. Kramer said during his report on the fire truck during the public hearing on the bond ordinance that it wasn't apples to apples, and he mentioned the other truck. And I saw Mr. Lee hold up a paper that had, it looked like a series of what we're looking at. Do we know what manufacturer we're buying?
Rosenbell.
Because the last time we asked, I think we hadn't really met on it, so I just wanted to get that clarified for the public. What line item appropriation are we using to pay fire expenses? Because there was over $16,000 worth of expenses tonight on the bill list. But I had asked at a prior meeting how we were taking that money in. I was told general fund, and I haven't seen the temporary budget yet. I did ask for it because it wasn't posted publicly at the time of its adoption. So did we make a fire appropriation in the temporary budget?
No.
How are we paying these expenses
Excuse
then?
me. We'll answer this when we do reports, okay?
Okay.
Just ask your question
Fine.
and we'll be happy to answer.
Okay, so I want to know how we're paying them, what appropriation we're taking that from. And the last thing, since we're looking at the fire contract with Medford Farms, I happened to see on social media this morning, Seneca Wrestling Social is having a Seneca Wrestling Social at Medford Farms Firehouse. I think, so we can clear everything up and not have another wash bay incident, that it clearly defines in the agreement what the fire company can do with the building that is now yours. And I appreciate what the volunteers do. I know they do the setup, the cleanup, everything. But I think if there's going to be monetary charges going towards these events, there needs to be clear definition of what portion goes to the firefighters and what portion goes to the township. And I do believe something should come to the township because it is their building and they're maintaining, as far as I know, the utilities for such. So I just ask that you look at that too in the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And go on to committee reports. Colonel Lowe.
William Lowe, I'm the safety officer.
Safety officer, I'm sorry, didn't mean
That happened
to take
first.
one of your.
This is the safety contract. By me just presenting this to you all tonight satisfies one of the requirements of the GIF safety program, that we make safety an issue on to the township committee. So this is a safety contract, and it's signed by the members of the safety committee. You'll see the provisions of the safety program. You also see the motto of the Tabernacle safety program, which is think inside the box. Everybody smokes, jokes, and tells lies and say you ought to think outside the box. We talk about speaking inside the box, talk about the basics. I started that with the fire company, reiterated with the rescue squad, and with the CERT, and with the rest of OEM, the rest of emergency services and public works, to talk about, look at the basics to make sure that all of our responders, all of our personnel stay safe. And again, it goes to the basics first. So if there's any questions about the safety program, if you'd like to address it. If not, I will then change over to the emergency management coordinator.
So now I can say the emergency management.
This is the event log, which is called ICS 214 for the snowstorm that wasn't. The important part about this snowstorm and everything that happened with it, it lets us test out a lot of different systems. So while everybody else was saying, oh, it was too bad that we didn't get all this snow and it was yada, 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 we were testing out emergency services to make sure that we could do the things that needed to be done. The first thing was, met with the two chiefs, decide when we were going to occupy the two stations. Once we started occupying the stations, then OEM becomes responsible for the reimbursement for the food costs that are incidental to feeding the people who come into the stations. That includes the CERT members, that's the OEM, that's the fire company, that's the rescue squad. It's Public Works. We opened the EOC. You can see the times and dates and all in here. You can see how many people we brought in. OEM had 2 people there, the CERT had 2 people there, 431 had 18, Public Works had 7, 439 had 13. We were occupied from about 1,800 hours on the 26th until about 1,000 hours on the 27th. Had 2 calls that were related to the snowstorm out of 431. Any questions?
Well, you had a good turnout, I see, from 431 and 439. You
It was incredible.
Some nice numbers there.
It's exactly what we want to do. We sat down, we talked about it, we talked about what the plan is, and what you're seeing is starting the development of how we're going to proceed in the future in emergency operations. And that will go back to what I said about we occupy the firehouse, occupy the rescue squad, occupy EOC, whatever it may be, and then OEM will cover the cost of that occupation, that operation. Therefore, we've got one simple thing. It tells us how much it costs. For something like this, it's not quite as important as it would be, you know, the governor declared an emergency, the county did, Tabernacle did not. But if it had been a big enough one so that we had to actually do a FEMA, you know, had a presidential declaration of FEMA reimbursement, doing it like this process makes that so much easier. What you don't see on here is the fire company, the rescue squad did, an OEM did 211s, which are sign-in sheets. We had in each truck a 214, which is an ICS form, which is a standard form that says who was on the truck, what the truck was used for, and the times. All that becomes important when you go for reimbursement. Any questions about that? We did 2 telephone calls. It was fascinating. This time I gave my personal cell phone as the callback number, which is what I use for the official OEM number because of the fact that I'm not in that building all the time. That generated more confusion from residents of this township than any other before. And so I got about 25 callbacks. I've never had callbacks before. It was fascinating. I got one guy that said, "Don't ever call me again." I promised that I would continue to call him. And then lastly, I got a call from a lady in Florida that said, "Please take me off your call list. I moved from Tabernacle to Florida. I kept the same telephone number. I asked her what the weather was. She said it was 70. I said, I'm going to continue to call you." Would you like me to address the LoSAP issue? Change subject on you. Would you like me to address the LoSAP issue and the CERT?
Would you? Sure.
Okay.
Be my guest.
I asked the question at the meeting, I think it was the organizational meeting, first workshop, to just put it in your minds that LoSAP is available for other things other than the fire company. It was not my intent at that time to have the CERT calls, because that's going to cause a major change in the way we would deploy and use the CERT. The CERT right now is a purely volunteer organization. They get no reimbursement, they get no GJAWs, they get no nothing, except a thank you very much for coming out. They don't have to appear to so many drills, they don't have to make so much training, they just have to go to the initial basic training and then be available. I never know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. Normally out of the 125 people we've got in the CERT, I will get anywhere, depending on what it is, I'll get anywhere from 10 to 50 people. Depends on what it is. It depends if it's a real emergency, it depends on just a call out. So, my thought has been, and working with the leadership of this CERT, is if we could take and break them into teams that could do specific things and then be dedicated to that thing. Rehab for firefighters. It's a specialty, but it doesn't take a lot of special training. It takes some knowledge. And it takes oversight maybe of an EMT that knows how to do vitals, but the rest of it's setting up stuff and making sure the firefighters get cooled or wherever it is. The problem is you need to have people that are dedicated to it that are going to show up. So the thought was, if I get 20 CERT members that say, I want to be on the rehab, among themselves have a team leader, among them decide what the standard is. You have to show up to so many of them, yada, yada, you have to go certain training, all that stuff. And then we start cobbling that together, we start looking then at can we reimburse them because we're demanding something of them that we're not after somebody else. We are a long way from that right now. But it's a thought process. So that's where we are. We're not even near the thing where we need to have, and Peter and I agree, that we need to even look at whether or not it takes, what it takes to do it. First thing I do is see if we want to do it. Well, that means, am I going to get 20 people who are going to vote and say, yeah, I want to do it, can we come up with a standard? No intent that they would meet the same standard as fire company. There's no way they could do it. No way we want them to do it. On the other hand, if they do something that is so critical to the emergency operation, that they're there all the time, that they're dedicated to it, should that be considered? And should that group be considered in that type of thing? Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, just a reminder that the township has a contract with Airway Paving, basically paving Suey Place Road from Southampton Township line to the Woodland Township line. Basically, we'll have a pre-construction meeting scheduled for the end of March, probably start construction the beginning of April is the current schedule. That's it.
Frank, or Doug, we still on schedule for bud courts? You guys that done? What's that? Yeah.
I can speak to that in my report.
Okay, thanks.
And we actually gave them a deadline, if I remember.
We did, I just was wondering if we were, I just want to make sure we're still on schedule. Deadline's like April 1 or something, but I just want to make sure we're still on schedule.
Okay. First, start my report, then I'll look at that. The first thing I'm going to ask for is a motion from the committee to advertise for the position of Deputy Municipal Clerk / Office Clerk. Replacement probably.
And that's full-time?
Full-time.
Have a motion?
I'll make it. Second.
Questions, comments from the committee? Roll call?
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the second thing I have is Mr. Barton asked me to look into the Verizon ending its return on tangible personal property use business exchange, or PT-10 for our municipality, which is basically, it was assessed at $566,903, which meant a total tax taken in for all entities of $15,011.59. Our local portion was $1,751.73 is our portion of it. I also contacted Verizon directly, talked to their government liaison. She assured me that they would get back to me on the number of houses they have left, although it's been their policy. I'm told Jay has tried to find this out, and apparently they're somewhat stonewalling that. But I was not given the answer that we wouldn't be told the number. She said she would get back to me. That was about 2 weeks ago. I have not heard back from her.
Thanks, Doug. Just for the public's information, Verizon, under their tariff, they have taken a position that if they lose more than 50% of the landlines in a municipality, that they're not obligated to pay this tax to the municipalities. And there are many municipalities in the state of New Jersey where the landline numbers have gone under 50%, and Verizon has stopped paying the municipalities. So that's why I asked our administrator to look into this to see what impact it would have on us and what percent of landlines, how are they tracking the landlines. So I think I know it's something that's on the League of Municipalities agenda. I'm not sure where it's going to go.
Also, Mr. Barton asked me to look into Lakeview Drive. There have been residents on there that were complaining about the condition of the road and whether we could include it in our road program. We've been over and patched. Last week we did the majority of the patching. We went back today and added on to that. I went out and looked at the road. It is not in great shape. It is remarkably, it was paved around the same time as the rest of the roads, but Ann and Woodside and Summit are in far better shape. It is not in my list for this year, but it's something I would move up for a priority for next year. So that's where I'm at with that. If there happens to be extra funding for this year, we could entertain it, but based on the funding I'm anticipating, we have projects which are needed now at this point in time. I also got a letter and request from resident Sean Judy, had expressed interest in purchasing block 1502, lot number 5, is contiguous property owner to that. He also would have some interest in lot 401, 4.01, 4.02, and 4.03 if we were interested in selling those. There are lots along the stream side of Goose Pond Road. It's my understanding that at least 401 through 403 were not buildable lots, that we got them because they couldn't support a septic system or a legal septic system. So lot 5 is a 33-acre lot, and we do have some Pinelands credits still attached to them, is my understanding. So I need some direction on whether you'd be interested, and we can talk about this at the next meeting if you'd like to give it some thought.
Does he know that those lots are not buildable?
Yeah, I think he's looking for acreage.
Kim, what was your comment?
I asked if he knew that those 3 lots were not buildable.
Yeah, he knows.
Well, I just,
Believe me, he knows.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
We put that on the agenda for next week to discuss it.
Yes.
This is something that would have to get advertised though, if I'm correct. If we do choose to do that.
We'd have to least offer it to the contiguous property owners and decide whether we want to separate the credits or sell away the credits.
Is that lot 5 buildable? Doug, that's 33 acres. There's 2 credits on it?
With a historic exemption, or pine, I'm going to call it a pine exemption. I know that's not the correct term, but cultural housing provision. Thank you. You may be, if he was contiguous property owner, and maybe have owned it at one time. I'm not sure how this got separated out, whether it was a separate lot always, or whether it was part of lot 10 at one point in time. I'm not sure.
We'll have to make sure so you know when we go back and revisit the issues.
Okay. It's that time of year again. I need authorization for aerial mosquito control for both larvicide and adulticide from the county. Need a motion so the mayor can sign the authorization so Burlington County can aerial spray as needed.
Can we tell them what to spray?
No, they usually tell us.
I'm kidding. I still have DDT. Windex, I mean, that's all I use.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have an update on the houses that are in the Summit Drive area that residents came and asked us to do something about, and I will run down the list for you. 22 Lee Drive, order was issued by court for demolition of the structure. It was informed the property may be purchased by a contractor. The contractor had obtained a permit to remove the UST and the tank has been removed. We've learned since that the tank had a leak and the buyer has backed out, so it is back in our court to decide whether, how and when they want to take the structure down. 68 Summit Drive, complaints have been filed. They've been to court. They were at court on February 2nd. It has been given 60 days to clean up, and the scheduled next court appearance is April the 7th. The 30 Lee Drive property, complaints have been signed. Judge Andronici has issued a warrant in the amount of $500 for failure to respond to the court. And Mr. Perry is looking at another avenue in which to bring the residents to court at this point in time. 72 Summit Drive, settlement has been reached with the insurance company, and the contractors have been contacted and are waiting for bids to repair the house. That was the one the tree came down on the roof of the house. Apparently it's been fairly extensive time take for the insurance company and then to get to an agreement. 65 Summit Drive, been working with the property owner. Several vehicles have been removed, and some of the outside store items are either being moved inside or removed at this point in time. And Mr. Perry will continue to work with the residents to try to clean that up. Okay, Tabernacle Rescue Squad has finished their year, and thanks, and I'll read the facts that they sent to me, or the email they sent to me. Thanks to the willingness of Tabernacle Township Committee to work together with our organization, they have saved the residents in need of our help a total of $47,046.86 that would have otherwise by law been needed to be balance billed. As you and our committee are aware, in accordance with the Office of Inspector General, we are only able to avoid balance billing by the use of contribution of tax dollars towards co-pays, deductibles, and the uninsured. We thank the Township and the Township Committee for their continued work with our organization on behalf of these and all of our residents. We strive to provide the best care for all those we are summoned to help at the lowest possible financial impact to our residents. Okay, report from the Tabernacle Fire Company number 1. They had a total month calls for 37 for the month of January. They had a total of 90 units responding. The chief's car responded 26 times, engine 43, 11, 13, Quint 43, 14, 22, tender 43, 16, 11 times, 43, 17, and mini pumper 6, The utility, which is 4318 one time. 4319, which is the fire police vehicle, was 8 times, and officers to the scene was 3. And that's the report I have. Township Committee accepted. I will add a note that I am very pleased with the cooperation I'm getting from the fire company and the cooperation that both Corky Lowe as Emergency Management Coordinator and I have seen with the Tabernacle Fire Company and the Tabernacle Rescue Squad, working with Public Works in any of our emergency situations that occurred over the month of January. We did meet with Mr. Lee and Rodney Haynes, Commissioner of Baseball, look over the remaining work at the snack stand. And Mr. Lee, if you'd like to give a report at your time about that.
I can do that.
We can move forward on that.
Okay.
Let me see if I can answer any of these questions.
Sure.
Mr. Cooper's question on LoSAP is part of the agreement with the local finance board. If that be provided, we have filled the paperwork out that we need to, and that is continued on, so our firefighters weren't left in any lapse of time. Money for the fire company is a grant that's supposed to go to the fire company directly, so that is not affected by the contract or electric contract. The 2660 fire grant.
The question also is, who's monitoring it? How is that being done?
It's turned over to the fire company for them to use as they see fit, as well as they fit.
So if they were buying alcohol with it, it would be okay?
No. And shame for you on suggesting that.
We used to have alcohol in there.
Belittles the volunteers that operate.
They used to have alcohol in there, that was...
Continental Fire, I will get back to you. I will send you codes to the office for the 22. And virtual at work, Kathy, I will get back to you on what firefighters have.
Thank you.
Fire certification program is so that the facility, the training room can be used. It's a requirement of the county so to provide those services. And their training officer or the chief will be responsible in making those arrangements as they have been in the past. It is really a housekeeping item which we had to do because the district no longer exists. Jason, it's a great idea, but I'm not the committee will have to take on GRC. And I believe that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Don?
All right, for my report, first of all, with respect to Mr. Lee's question about Bud Court, we did receive a letter from Mr. Pagliuso's attorney indicating that they would accede to the demands of the committee, that they would be in to complete that paving before the timeline expired. and that they would be contacting Mr. Morris to talk about the timing and their intention to go ahead and complete that work in the spring.
Was April 1 the target? I don't remember exactly the date.
I don't have the letter with me, but I'll get the letter out to the committee. I don't remember what that deadline was, but I know I have the letter where they indicated that they would go ahead and comply. There was some, I think, initial indication that they were going to struggle to do that, so forth and so on. I think they appreciated the committee's position that it needed to be taken care of, there would be no further time granted, and they've made that commitment in writing. So we expect that to get done in the spring as soon as the plants are able to accommodate that work being performed. With respect to LoSAP, I think the administrator addressed that. The Finance Board did and does have special ability to grant us to essentially, as I understand it, transform their account into the township account with no interruption in service to the firefighters, and that process is ongoing with the administrator. With respect to the Brooks' comments about the differences between the contract between the township and the fire company versus the district, the fire district and the fire company, I would have to say that I believe that the contract to be essentially exactly the same. There appears to be some belief by the Brooks that there are materially different terms. I'll make sure that I have the same contract, but what I wrote, best of my recollection, is almost verbatim the contract, because the idea was that we weren't going to change it, that we would leave it the same, and that if there would be issues or changes or amendments or modification of the agreement that would be necessary in the future, that we would have the ability to go ahead and do that. But we would preserve the relationship as it currently exists in order to not disrupt the transition in any way or promote an easier transition. So I'll, with an open eye, go ahead and look at that. Maybe you're seeing something different than I am, but I believe I wrote the contract. It's almost verbatim, but I'll go back and take a look. I'll compare it to the version of the contract that you may have been provided or what Doug has, and I'll take a look at that. And then I did want to discuss the Ms. Brooks' latest lawsuit. Ms. Brooks has previously sued the township under Oprah, and we have another lawsuit which arises out of Ms. Brooks' demand for certain information concerning farmland assessments. Ms. Brooks made a demand of your custodian, your clerk, LaShawn, which is the process to produce records related to Mr. Brick's farmland assessment. Mr. Brooks or Mr. Brick would file an application and supporting documentation in conjunction with her discussions with me and the township and our assessor. Your custodian, LaShawn, took the position that the written and specific exception in Oprah that talks about personal financial records being exempt would exempt the personal financial information which is included in those forms. So LaShawn redacted the forms to delete the actual numbers and then provided otherwise the documentation. Ms. Brooks has indicated in her lawsuit that that's insufficient for her purposes, that it's their claim that it's the township's obligation to provide the actual data that was submitted by the farmer in support of his farmland exception, farmland assessment, and that the Oprah supports that as well as the common law right to know would support that. The statute does specifically accept personal financial information. It would appear that the clerk's determination that this type of information falls squarely within the meaning of that exception certainly appears to be a valid position. There's no specific case law, there's no actual authority on this exact issue. So the clerk is left to make the best decision that she can make based upon the materials that she has for consultation with me and the plain language of the statute. I think it's unfortunate because the purpose of the Open Public Records Act is to promote transparent and open government, which of course is a terrific thing. In this circumstance, though, given that the documentation, absent the numbers, has been provided, given that the assessor has indicated that the property owner qualifies, I searched to find the public purpose in the lawsuit aimed at getting the actual information associated with Mr. Brick's production. So it would appear that, in my mind, there's no public purpose to be served, and yet the township is left to make a decision between siding with the interests of Mr. Brick, who has expressed a desire not to have that information revealed publicly, and that, or succumb to the demands of Ms. Brooks through the Open Public Records Act and common law claim in litigation. And so it's a difficult position, I think, for the township to be put in, because it's the proverbial rock in the hard place. If you choose to not produce the document, to take advantage of the plain language of the statute would seem to exempt that information, then you're left in dealing with the lawsuit, which is also a risky situation because of the prevailing party doctrine. The idea being that if ultimately a court was to determine that the documentation should be provided, or if the township, through the course of the litigation, based upon the expenses that were being incurred, decided at some point to go ahead and provide the documentation, then that would trigger the responsibility of the township to pay all of Ms. Brooks' legal fees. Well, the converse is not true. The prevailing party doctrine does not require the payment of the private person who is demanding, or the requester's legal fees. That downside is solely the potential consequence to the township and its taxpayers. So I think it's a very difficult and untenable position given the current language of the statute for the township to be in. The township is left to decide between taxpayers what to do when there's no public purpose or public question being addressed, or which is germane to the lawsuit. And it's really a no-win position. Mr. Brick has indicated that he believes it's personal information. He's threatened suit if in fact the information was provided. And of course we already have a lawsuit demanding the same information by Ms. Brooks, which is complicated by the potential costs under the prevailing party doctrine. So, to some extent, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Either way, the township is potentially subject to tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. And what's most frustrating to me, and I think to the committee, is that there's no public purpose that's going to be advanced. There's no public purpose for the provision of this information. It's strictly limited to, I think, the private interests of the litigants. And so it's a very difficult position to be in. And I think that at some point the committee is going to have to decide between taxpayers, unless Ms. Brooks determines not to go forward, the township committee is going to have to make a choice between taxpayers over an issue that serves and will not serve any public purpose. And I think that's to some extent a bastardization of the statute, because the statute is to promote open government, and the production of Mr. Brick's personal financial data does nothing, I think, to enhance open government or transparency in the delivery of services. You have the assessor indicating unequivocally that the man is qualified. Once that is established, what's the public purpose in revealing the actual specific numbers? And as Mr. McNaughton indicated, there is some reservation among farmers who face the prospect of having their personal financial information revealed for all the world to see, simply to assert what is their right to a farmland assessment if in fact their parcel qualifies. So I wanted the public to understand the issue that's being put forth, because it's not really fair to the public to sort of hear sometimes about these lawsuits long after they're over, long after you've consternated over what to do, and after these decisions have been made. At least I think at this point, I'm going to encourage you to go into executive session ultimately and discuss this issue and your reasonings and what you'd like to do. But I think the public should benefit from understanding the nuances of the suit and the position that this committee is put in by this particular suit.
Peter, can I ask you a general question on this? If Mrs. Brooks had referred this to the GRC for an opinion, it wouldn't cost us anything. And that's certainly an option that is available to our or anybody else.
Well, it would cost, just for me to go as your solicitor and deal with the Government Records Council. Potentially that cost could be extremely minimal, just the submission itself sometimes if it were ruled upon. But certainly it would be a fraction of what's created when you get into litigation.
And that's available anytime.
It's available anytime. It's not mandatory.
Right.
And so I think that what the League of Municipalities and the legislature is considering is to tweak that statute so as to not put public officials like yourself between that rock and the hard place when there's no legitimate public interest being advanced by the release of the information.
But if we were to grant the request, we in essence would be violating the Open Public Meetings Act, wouldn't we? Because it specifically says personal financial information shall not be disclosed. So if we grant the request, we're violating the law.
It certainly could be argued, and likely would be argued, that in the converse, you violated the law because the law says that you should protect that information. And providing it could in fact be viewed as a violation. Of course, there would have to be damages, there would have to be other standing to bring a suit against the municipality. But yeah, I mean, the Government Records Council does a great job in marshaling these issues, bringing the parties together, identifying the public purpose that's going to be advanced in light of the language of the statute, and reconciling these differences. In this circumstance, we're not given the ability to potentially take advantage of that process. We're right into court and spending money. And again, it's difficult for me to understand why it's appropriate, given that there's no public purpose to be advanced in the release of the information, and given that it's going to cost the taxpayers, win, lose, or draw, thousands and thousands of dollars.
I have a question for Mr. Renwick. Did you make the determination on the farmland assessment, or was that done on a different level?
The farmland assessment was appealed. I appealed it because there was an issue with the portion of it not being assessed properly. So it went through the county board review. They reviewed it and they granted.
So it was the county that actually,
County Board of Taxation.
not us?
Right.
Okay.
Well, us and the county.
But they looked at the documentation, and upon that documentation is what they based their decision to grant farmland?
Yes.
I should add, I think that in my limited contact with the Division of Taxation, that it appears that they're seriously considering amending the form so that this quandary doesn't exist in the future, and not requiring those seeking that assessment. Is that correct, Jay?
Yes. In fact,
submit that detailed information.
I spoke with the Deputy Director of Division of Taxation quite a few times, but most recently today. She actually provided me with a draft copy of the form that they have. It has an Oprah clause in it. And they are, like the farming community, are very concerned about what impact this will have on farmland assessment throughout the state of New Jersey, because if this becomes open, it's going to discourage farmers from providing that information. And they don't want that to happen. Part of the new Senator Beck law requires more openness, but they want to see farmers starting to comply with these regulations. And they can see this as, they're not going to provide that. And it's going to have a huge impact on the farmland assessment in the state.
And I think the potential modification of the form is only affirmation of what I said, that the division recognizes is once they qualify, that's the only public interest to be served.
Their intent is obvious. Their intent is what the Oprah law says, personal financial information is excluded. And they just haven't put that form out yet. But if we go ahead again and release that information, we're violating the Division of Taxation.
The Division of Taxation made it clear to me that they do not want information released on farmland assessment data. They do not want it. It was never their intent to have it released. They don't release tax return information, nothing that's financial in any nature they release.
And so the frustration is revealed, I think, if you ask yourself a simple question, which is, what purpose would there be in releasing this information so long as it's determined that they qualify?
Well, I think the dilemma we also face too is when you somewhat pointed out, I mean, do we spend thousands and thousands and thousands of taxpayer dollars to defend this? I mean, that's a tough decision to make too. You know, and if we grant it, then we're going to get possibly sued, and threatened by suit by the individual.
Mr. Britt, in this circumstance.
Personally, I'm looking at it this way. Are we defending one farmer, or are we defending all the farmers? I feel as though we would be defending all the farmers. That's how I feel.
Well, I think we should take
Because there is nothing for them to gain by obtaining that information.
Sorry. I think we should take our attorney's advice and go into executive session to finish this So we add that to our session.
We can add that at the appropriate time.
Mayor, I agree with you that we should discuss this in private, but also I think we should consider a resolution, maybe going to our local state senator and assemblyman and the League of Municipalities endorsing the change of statute so that it is mandated that you have to go to the GRC where you're not at risk for the prevailing party doctrine, and you're only out your attorney's cost, not the complainant's attorney's cost at that point. And that just makes so much sense to go there rather than go into Superior Court and be at risk of paying the complainant's cost on top of your own cost of defending, especially in a situation like this where we're kind of painted into the corner. And it's a no-win situation for this committee. But we've got to do the right thing. As Joe said, if it's going to affect all the farmers in Tabernacle Township and throughout the state, it's actually could be a precedent-setting case.
That's all I have for tonight.
Committee reports. John?
I'll pass, thank you.
As Doug mentioned, Rodney Haynes and Doug and I walked through the snack stand over at Patty Boker. The volunteer group that had gotten us to where we are now was essentially dried up. Those folks that either are out of the program or their kids have gotten older. And it's a recommendation that Doug and Rodney and I came up with, is that we ask the committee, and I'll ask the committee in terms of a motion of consent to have Doug go out and get 3 bids for a general contractor to complete the project. It's probably going to be in the neighborhood of what we guessed was about $30,000 to finish it. It's essentially the completion of the sheetrock and tape, and to get that spackled and finished, as well as soffit and a couple other odds and ends. But at this point, TAA does not really have the volunteer base to finish the project, so it was the consent of us to ask for a contractor to come in and complete the project, and I'm asking for a motion. I'll make a motion to have Doug go ahead and get 3 bids from contractors to complete the project. Did I miss anything?
We'll be getting 3 quotes, see where we are. And
3
if we
quotes.
have
I
to
said
get-
bid, but I meant 3
and
quotes.
if we're above the quote threshold, we'll be back to talk about the.
Right.
It's my understanding there's money left in the grant to do this.
There is.
Not taxpayer money.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Is there a second?
I would second it and say that, time is of the essence. This building has been long under construction. It would be a shame not to have this building open for a first pitch of baseball season. And Doug, I would encourage you to expedite this as quickly as possible to get the building done, at least get the building open, maybe not all the grounds around it, so that it can be open for baseball season.
We will try for as early as we can. I'm not sure we'll be ready.
I know we're only like 6 weeks away, the kids are going to be playing baseball.
2 other things I want to mention. I attended the Ag Convention down in Atlantic City this week, and I can tell you that based on our previous discussion and Mr. McDonald's comments, the farm community is paying very close attention to what's happening in Tabernacle right now. I also wanted to recognize Mr. Moran from Troop 439, who was almost asleep in the back part of the room. He was here to complete a merit badge. Thank you for coming tonight. This is a longer one than we normally have. I'm not looking forward to any more snow this year. And also want to recognize the folks from the school board that came over for the proclamation. So thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Pass. Yeah, Jason, I was going to respond to your comment about the GRC. I think you've kind of seen how we all feel about that, and I think it's almost appalling that people wouldn't make use of that opportunity to go to the GRC and to save everybody in this room thousands of dollars in their taxes. I mean, to pump up our taxes for legal fees because you don't want to go to the GRC because you want to get a court ruling on this, to me, it's almost unconscionable, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That's it.
Okay. And I'd also like to thank the school board for coming out tonight and sitting through our meeting. I appreciate it. I know what it's like to sit through meetings, so I appreciate you spending an extra evening with us. just to follow up on Mrs. Berger's question about the truck, when we were talking at the beginning of the meeting about agenda items, Mrs. Brooks asked at the beginning about the truck, I believe it was at the beginning of the meeting, and Doug did say we were looking at Rosenbauer, because it also had to do with the financing, and Doug said that we were not financing through the Houston Galveston bid, that we were buying it through there, not, so we did say earlier that that was the truck, just to follow up on that. You might not have heard, but I just wanted to make sure that we did tell you earlier. Okay, anything else from anybody? Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
And Mayor, for the record, that executive session would be to discuss the litigation in Brooks versus the Township of Tabernacle, Crown Castle versus the Township of Tabernacle, the ongoing litigation in Kirsch, and other open unsafe structure litigation, and also to discuss shared services, negotiation of potential shared services.
Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.